Welcome to a deep dive into the investigative report by John Simon, a critical exploration of world politics, hidden power structures, and the disturbing intersections of religion, government, and society. This video will walk you through Simon's findings, allegations, and the complex web of abuse, ritual, and control that he claims has shaped recent American history. From the corridors of the Vatican to the heart of the US Secret Service, and from the NBA to the FBI, we'll examine the evidence, the patterns, and the questions that demand answers. Let's begin by setting the stage for this multifaceted investigation. Simon's report identifies three major entities: the US Secret Service, the Vatican Secret Police, and a hidden minority sect within the Christian Church, referred to as Calvary Jews. According to Simon, these groups have allegedly collaborated in covert operations, targeting various communities and individuals. The report suggests their influence extends beyond borders, impacting Jewish, Catholic, Christian, Gypsy, Roma, and non-denominational populations. This scene explores how these power players are portrayed as orchestrating a new form of class society, reminiscent of historical ghettos and concentration camps, but now within the United States. Striking point in Simon's report is the comparison between the Vatican's removal of genitalia from statues and the continued display of nude children in religious art. He argues that these choices reflect deeper values and priorities within the Church, raising questions about what is deemed acceptable and what is censored. Simon also claims personal victimization, alleging that the Church has interfered with his relationships and bodily autonomy, using technology and political connections to exert control. This scene delves into the symbolism and implications of these actions. Throughout the report, Simon details a series of abuses he claims to have suffered at the hands of powerful institutions. He describes being isolated, denied companionship, and subjected to invasive medical procedures without consent. Simon alleges that these acts are part of a broader pattern of using individuals as tools for breeding and experimentation, both in the US and abroad. He connects his experiences to a larger narrative of ritual abuse and societal manipulation, suggesting that his story is just one example among many. Simon's investigation draws parallels between historical rituals and modern public spectacles. He references the use of blackface, the legacy of Al Jolson, and the ongoing presence of ritualistic behavior in American communities. According to Simon, these acts are not merely relics of the past, but are actively perpetuated and ignored by those in positions of authority. This scene examines how ritual and spectacle serve as tools for both distraction and control, shaping public perception and masking deeper abuses. Significant portion of the report focuses on the FBI's handling of child abuse cases. Simon alleges that the agency has not only failed to protect victims, but has actively covered up crimes, providing shelter to perpetrators. He claims that recent lawsuits have exposed a pattern of complicity, with the FBI becoming an associate in ongoing abuse. This scene explores the implications of these allegations, questioning the true purpose and accountability of federal law enforcement. Simon suggests that the abuse and manipulation of children is part of a broader strategy to reshape American society. He argues that selective breeding, coercion, and exploitation are being used to erode the middle class and alter the country's demographic makeup. The report connects these practices to sports franchises, religious organizations, and political agendas, painting a picture of a society under siege from within. This scene unpacks the concept of social engineering, as described in the report. Report highlights the role of the NBA and media in shaping racial narratives and public perceptions. Simon claims that sports franchises are used to promote certain images and values, often at the expense of European heritage and identity. He points to the changing demographics of teams, the portrayal of athletes, and the exploitation of young girls as evidence of a coordinated agenda. This scene examines how sports and media intersect with issues of race, identity, and power. Simon's report draws connections between religious fanaticism and political power. He alleges that mega-churches and religious organizations are complicit in the exploitation of youth, serving the interests of both Democratic and Republican power bases. The use of threats, coercion, and party loyalty is described as a means of maintaining control and suppressing dissent. This scene explores the intersection of faith, politics, and social manipulation. Report discusses the impact of South American immigration and cultural influence on American suburbia. Simon describes a perceived loss of traditional European structures and values, replaced by new rituals and burial practices. He raises concerns about selective breeding, cultural assimilation, and the transformation of neighborhoods. This scene considers the complexities of demographic change and cultural integration in the United States. Simon draws a provocative comparison between ancient burial rituals, such as the Chinese terracotta army and Hawaiian traditions, and modern practices involving trees and human remains. He suggests that these rituals are being repurposed for sinister purposes, including the desecration of bodies and the use of human remains in religious ceremonies. This scene explores the symbolism and alleged practices described in the report. Simon's narrative is deeply personal, detailing decades of alleged abuse, surveillance, and manipulation. He claims that his life has been shaped by forces beyond his control, with authorities and institutions ignoring his pleas for help. Despite contacting law enforcement, politicians, and church officials, Simon reports that his situation has only worsened. This scene centers on the emotional and psychological toll of his experiences. Recurring theme in the report is the manipulation of biological and social development. Simon argues that minority groups are allegedly targeting European children for their genetic traits, seeking to accelerate development and exploit cultural differences. He claims that these practices are part of a larger agenda to reshape society and diminish the influence of traditional European values. This scene unpacks the controversial claims of genetic and social engineering. Simon alleges that land acquisition and development schemes are being used as tools for social control and political takeover. He suggests that these efforts are designed to create a more controllable class society, lowering expectations and opportunities for white Europeans and their children. This scene examines the intersection of real estate, politics, and social engineering as described in the report. Report delves into the use of symbols, rituals, and sexuality as mechanisms of control. Simon discusses the psychological impact of religious and political narratives, including the portrayal of women, the use of sexual imagery, and the manipulation of youth. He raises concerns about the normalization of exploitation and the blurring of boundaries between public and private life. This scene explores the power of symbols and rituals in shaping behavior. Simon draws attention to the use of sexual and animal symbolism in political campaigns, referencing the donkey and elephant mascots of the Democratic and Republican parties. He questions the societal obsession with sexuality and its impact on children, particularly young girls. This scene considers the intersection of politics, symbolism, and social values in contemporary America. Report criticizes political leaders for focusing on foreign aid and gas prices while neglecting domestic issues such as child abuse, homelessness, and land use. Simon calls for greater accountability and the enforcement of laws to protect vulnerable populations. He argues that justice requires due process and that vigilante actions only create more problems. This scene highlights the need for balanced priorities and effective governance. Unique aspect of Simon's report is the use of numerology and statistical patterns to draw connections between events, dates, and addresses. He interprets numbers as evidence of hidden relationships and conspiracies, linking tragedies such as 9/11, helicopter crashes, and famous murders. This scene explores the role of numerology in constructing alternative narratives and the challenges of interpreting such evidence. Simon connects ritual terrorism to major historical events, including the September 11th attacks, the murders of Sharon Tate and the LaBiancas, and the deaths of public figures like Diana Spencer. He suggests that these tragedies are part of a larger pattern of ritual violence, orchestrated by powerful interests. This scene examines the evidence and reasoning behind these claims, considering the implications for our understanding of history. Report alleges that many high-profile crimes, including 9/11, remain unsolved or improperly prosecuted. Simon claims that he has uncovered evidence linking these cases to broader conspiracies, but that authorities are unwilling to act. He highlights the use of individuals as markers or symbols in these events, suggesting a deliberate effort to obscure the truth. This scene discusses the challenges of seeking justice in complex, unresolved cases. Simon presents a series of statistical calculations linking his family members, addresses, and significant events. He interprets these patterns as evidence of a hidden agenda, with personal tragedies and public disasters connected by numerology. This scene explores the role of coincidence, pattern recognition, and the search for meaning in chaotic events. Report draws numerous connections between movies, media releases, and ritual symbolism. Simon analyzes release dates, plot elements, and character names, suggesting that popular culture is used to reinforce and communicate hidden messages. He references films like The Green Mile, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and The Time Machine, interpreting them as part of a broader narrative of control and manipulation. This scene examines the intersection of entertainment and conspiracy. Simon alleges that he has been subjected to electroshock and other forms of medical abuse, inspired by beliefs depicted in films like The Green Mile. He claims that these practices are justified by authorities as healing mechanisms, but in reality serve to inflict pain and maintain control. This scene explores the history and controversy of medical experimentation and abuse. Report references crime scene photographs that allegedly link Simon's family members to infamous crimes, such as the Manson murders. Simon suggests that these connections are not coincidental, but part of a deliberate effort to target and manipulate him. This scene considers the challenges of interpreting photographic evidence and the dangers of drawing conclusions from circumstantial links. Simon analyzes the release dates of albums, songs, and films, searching for hidden patterns and connections to significant events in his life. He interprets these coincidences as evidence of a larger conspiracy, with popular culture serving as a coded language for those in the know. This scene explores the allure and pitfalls of pattern recognition in music and media. Report draws connections between Notre Dame University, referred to as the Green University, and various rituals involving body mutilation and symbolism. Simon interprets statistical data, addresses, and phone numbers as evidence of hidden relationships between institutions and personal tragedies. This scene examines the use of academic and religious institutions in constructing narratives of power and control. Simon discusses a series of plane crashes involving sports teams and public figures, suggesting that these tragedies are linked to racial motives and social engineering. He argues that the targeting of white athletes and teams is part of a broader strategy to reshape American society. This scene considers the evidence and reasoning behind these controversial claims. Central theme in the report is the concept of an eye for an eye, interpreted as both a religious doctrine and a mechanism for personal and collective revenge. Simon explores how this principle is used to justify violence, sabotage, and exploitation, both domestically and internationally. This scene delves into the ethical and practical implications of retributive justice. Simon discusses the changing demographics of professional sports teams, particularly in the NBA. He claims that the exclusion of white players and the dominance of black athletes is part of a deliberate strategy, supported by owners and political interests. This scene examines the intersection of race, sports, and business, and the controversies surrounding team ownership and player selection. Report raises the possibility of insurance fraud and fetishization as motives behind certain crimes and tragedies. Simon suggests that mutilation, torture, and sexual exploitation are not only means of control, but also sources of profit and gratification for those involved. This scene explores the darker side of crime and the commodification of suffering. Simon draws connections between notorious serial killers, such as E. Jane and the Son of Sam, and broader patterns of ritual abuse. He argues that these individuals are not isolated cases, but are linked to institutional practices and conspiracies. This scene examines the evidence for and against such claims, considering the psychological and social factors involved. Report is filled with references to geographic locations, coordinates, and statistical codes. Simon interprets these as evidence of hidden relationships and conspiracies, connecting places like Plainfield Cemetery, Notre Dame, and various addresses to significant events. This scene explores the use of geography and statistics in constructing alternative narratives. Simon details a series of personal losses, including theft, vandalism, and the destruction of cherished possessions. He attributes these incidents to ongoing abuse by powerful interests, linking them to broader patterns of ritual and control. This scene highlights the emotional impact of repeated victimization and the struggle for justice. Simon alleges that he and his environment have been subjected to electrocution and other forms of harm, orchestrated by those inspired by films like The Green Mile. He describes the death of plants and the deterioration of his living conditions as evidence of targeted abuse. This scene examines the intersection of environmental harm and personal victimization. Report continues to draw connections between media releases, music, and statistical codes. Simon interprets song lengths, album releases, and television episodes as part of a coded language used by those in power. This scene explores the challenges of distinguishing between coincidence and intentional messaging in popular culture. Simon references the International UFO Museum and Research Center, interpreting its address and statistical codes as evidence of hidden agendas. He suggests that UFO phenomena are intertwined with political strategies and social engineering. This scene examines the role of fringe topics in constructing alternative narratives and the search for hidden meaning. Report includes detailed calculations linking family members' birth dates, addresses, and significant events. Simon interprets these patterns as evidence of targeted danger and assassination attempts. This scene explores the psychological impact of living under perceived threat and the complexities of interpreting personal data. Simon discusses high-profile political accidents, such as the Dick Cheney hunting incident, and interprets them as symbolic acts connected to broader conspiracies. He analyzes dates, numbers, and relationships to construct a narrative of intentional harm and hidden messages. This scene considers the role of symbolism in political violence. Report accuses institutions like the FBI of complicity in abuse and the existence of secret societies, such as the Internal Brotherhood of Fags, IBF. Simon claims that these groups use technology, implants, and psychological manipulation to control individuals and communities. This scene examines the evidence for institutional complicity and the challenges of exposing secret societies. Simon describes the use of symbols, colors, and physical markers as tools for covert communication among conspirators. He references locations, logos, and even shopping malls as sites of hidden messaging. This scene explores the psychology of symbols and the challenges of distinguishing between genuine signals and overinterpretation. Report places special emphasis on the number 3, interpreting it as a marker for rituals, rebirth, and exploitation. Simon connects this symbolism to grade levels, ages, and religious narratives, suggesting that it is used to justify and facilitate abuse. This scene examines the significance of numerical markers in ritual and conspiracy theories. Simon interprets physical features, such as noses and birthmarks, as markers of identity and hidden meaning in photographs. He suggests that these features are used to communicate messages and establish connections between individuals and events. This scene explores the role of physical appearance in constructing narratives of conspiracy. Report analyzes the works of prominent filmmakers, such as Steven Spielberg and Francis Ford Coppola, interpreting their films as vehicles for hidden messages and ritual symbolism. Simon examines release dates, character names, and plot elements, suggesting that Hollywood plays a central role in shaping public perception and reinforcing conspiracies. This scene considers the influence of entertainment on society. As the report concludes, Simon calls for accountability, truth, and justice. He acknowledges the unorthodox nature of his investigation, but insists that the evidence demands a fair hearing. Simon urges readers and viewers to remember the past, recognize ongoing abuses, and maintain personal decency in the face of overwhelming challenges. This scene summarizes the key themes and calls to action from the investigation. In our final scene, we reflect on the lessons and warnings contained in Simon's report. Whether or not all claims can be substantiated, the investigation raises important questions about power, accountability, and the need for vigilance in protecting individual rights. As we move forward, it is essential to critically examine the structures and narratives that shape our society, ensuring that justice and truth remain at the forefront of our collective consciousness.